Hello there. Welcome to I'll Drink to Fact, a true story versus Hollywood podcast, where we take a look at your favorite true story movies and compare them to the facts from the actual cases, and then we decide whether the movies are full of fact or full of crap. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Katie.
And we will guide you on this tour today.
That we will. Today, the movie we have for you is called The Possession. Mm-hmm. And it is inspired by the true story of... The Dybbuk Box.
The Dybbuk Box.
Ooh.
That sounds creepy. So, as always, we usually have some drinks while we talk about our facts.
We do. What's in your cup, Daniel?
In my cup is a drink that I'm calling Stoneberry Tea. It's got peach vodka, some spiced rum, some sweet tea, and some cranberry juice in it. So the stone comes from the peach, the berry comes from the cranberry, and the tea comes from, obviously, the tea.
Nice.
It's pretty tasty. What's in your cup, Katie?
I am drinking Javalava from Pearl Street Brewery in La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Nice.
It's a coffee-infused stout, and it's super good. I love coffee, and it has really strong coffee notes, but it's a really smooth beer, and it's not too heavy.
Yeah, it is very, very nice.
Yeah, I mean, I gave it a 5 stars on Untapped, so.
Nice. And that's, if I give it a 5, it's very rare, but you're a little more lenient with your scores than I am, but I would still give that like a 4.75 or a 5.
I would give it a 5 for like return drinkability. If I'm like, this is really good and I could like come back and drink it a lot. Yeah, then I give it a 5. And that's how I feel about this one.
Whenever I took a sip of that, I was like, I could definitely stock my fridge with this.
Yeah.
It's tasty.
I mean, I like dark beers, but the downside with dark beers is sometimes they're really heavy and you can't drink a lot, them a lot or drink them. They don't go down as easily. So this one, it feels light, but it has the nice dark flavors and roasty notes. So
it's nice and roasty and full. So that's where we're at with our drinks. Hopefully you're all enjoying some drinks. If you're at home or at a bar or something. However, if you're driving, let's keep the drinks for at the house. Don't want to tell you how to live your life. There are laws for that.
That there are.
So this week, I looked into the movie and Katie looked into the true story. Mm-hmm. So as per usual, one of us will present one will present the other, and then we'll do a little discussion about it at the end.
Yeah. I'm excited to do this one. I first heard about the Dybbuk Box from And That's Why We Drink, which is one of our favorite podcasts. And I don't think they talked about the movie, like that this movie was inspired by it. But when I saw that this was one of the movies based on a true story and that it was the Dybbuk Box, I was really excited to do it. So
yeah, absolutely. Me too. All
right, Daniel. So why don't you tell us what happened in the movie?
Alrighty. So like I said, we'll be talking about The Possession today. It came out in 2012. It is rated PG-13, which it is actually a pretty good PG-13 horror movie, I guess. I'm usually not a big fan of non-rated R horror movies, but this was not bad. So this film, the budget was $14 million, which seems
pretty low.
Pretty low, but I mean, there weren't really any special effects. We'll actually get into that a little bit later about clever camera work that kept them from having to use special effects.
Cool.
It looks like worldwide gross on it was $85 million. So it did really, really well.
Yeah.
I mean, opening weekend was $17 million, so it made back its nut on opening weekend and then went on to make a lot more. What?
Just hearing you say make back its nut was funny. And it made me think of that crossword puzzle clue that I thought was bust a nut, and it wasn't. It was bust a gut.
That's funny. So the movie runtime is 92 minutes, and it was directed by Ole Bornedal.
Yeah.
Hopefully I didn't just completely fucking butcher that. But
it's either Ole or Ole.
Ole, and then it's either Bornedal or Bornedal, or something else that I'm not even thinking of. So anyway, now that this has already gone off the tracks, let's get back to it. So the movie opens up with one of our favorite screens. The following is based on a true story. And then we get another title card that says, this is what happened to one family over the course of 29 days. So we are introduced to the Dybbuk Box at an old woman's house. An older woman is staring at the box on a shelf. as there are noises coming from the box. And on the second watch, I actually saw, like, beside the box is a card that says, "Happy birthday, Mom, love, Russell."
Okay.
So I wonder if he got her the box for her birthday and if it was, like, recent, maybe?
Okay.
And then the woman decides to destroy the box with a hammer. However, the box has other plans. The scene soon turns into, like, an episode of WWE Wrestling. With the lady getting thrown all over the room. And she's, like, taking a beating by an invisible entity.
Mm-hmm.
So then after Old Lady beat down, the next scene shows Clyde, played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who you probably know from either Supernatural or The Walking Dead. He's coaching a basketball practice. He takes the ball away from his players and tells them to continue to practice without the ball. I'm not really sure what the goal was here, but it showed us, the audience, that Jeffrey Dean Morgan has practiced dealing with invisible things, which will come in handy later in the movie.
Very good point.
So, Clyde, a.k.a. Dad, goes to Stephanie, a.k.a. Mom's house, which is played by...
a.k.a. ex-wife.
Yep, a.k.a.
Sorry.
ex-wife's house. Stephanie is played by Kira Sedgwick, a.k.a. Kevin Bacon's wife. And he is there to pick up the kids, Em and Hannah, specifically. Clyde and Stephanie are recently divorced. They're living separately, and Stephanie is dating a new guy named Brett, who is a stickler about taking shoes off at the door, we find out. So Clyde drives the kids out of town to show their new house. They have pizza that night, and everything's hunky-dory.
Mm-hmm.
So the next day, Clyde and the kids see a yard sale. While there, Em spots a box and decides she wants it. It's our Dybbuk box from the beginning of the movie with the old lady and the fights and the beatdown and shit. And as they're leaving, Em is holding the box and she sees the old lady from the beginning through a window. The lady is all bandaged and in a hospital bed. There's like a nurse there and everything. The woman sees Em in the box and starts losing her shit, like attacking a window. I just popped myself in the head by an invisible entity. So, back at home, Em is trying to open the box. Clyde tries to open it, but there aren't any seams, and before he can really go too far with it, he receives a phone call and says he'll help her later. So, that night, Em is in bed sleeping, and she hears whispering coming from the box. So, she grabs the box and is looking at it and manages to get the box open, which ultimately releases the spirit. But inside the box, she finds a tooth, a dead moth, a wooden figurine, and a ring. So she decides to put the ring on, naturally.
Oh, yeah. Always a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. And then she falls asleep with the box like it's a teddy bear.
That is probably the hardest part of this movie that I had trouble believing in, was that this 12-year-old girl would be interested in this out of all the stuff at the rummage sale.
Right, she like walks up wearing like a sundress and a sun hat and all this stuff and all
from the rummage sale, yeah.
Right, and she's just like, "Oh, a box.
An old dusty box.
Gotta have it." So the next morning, Em is awoken by Hannah screaming, which is the older sister. Mm-hmm. So Clyde and Em rush to Hannah's room. Hannah is agitated. She's like, "It was on my face," and she's freaking out. So like Clyde and Em are throwing back the sheets, and they find a very alive moth that resembles the very dead moth that was inside the box. Mm-hmm. So Clyde takes a shoe and kills the moth, which pisses off both daughters. Hannah gets mad that he killed it on her sheets instead of getting rid of it, and vegan daughter Em gets mad because, well, he killed it.
Which is very much me when I was a vegetarian in high school.
So
I
there
used
you
to
go.
put bugs in a box and take them outside instead of killing them.
That's sweet. So the next scene shows Em telling Hannah that she just doesn't feel right. I guess, you know, we're led to believe that like maybe there's some sort of possession going on or something. Whatever the case. So Clyde takes Em and Hannah back to Stephanie's house, his ex-wife, a.k.a. Mom.
A.k.a. Kira Sedgwick.
Yep. A.k.a. Kevin Bacon's wife. And Hannah rats out the fact that Clyde ordered pizza because Mom had previously just been like, "Hey, no pizza."
What did she say? Nothing if it doesn't grow on a plant or
if it
grow
doesn't grow on a tree, right? So, which is funny because when he comes back and Hannah like rats him out, he was like, "Yeah, crazy enough, we got a new house and pizzas grow on trees there." Or no, M did.
Okay.
The little girl did. So anyway, the next scene shows Clyde picking the kids back up. I guess we're to assume it's like been a week maybe, or like every other. We don't
2
know
weeks,
what their
whatever.
visitation schedule is. They should have showed us at the beginning of the movie. So,
Are you really concerned about this family's visitation?
well, if they were so clear that this happened over 29
that's
days,
true.
I want to know what's going on.
Fair enough.
You know?
That's a good point. It's a really good point.
That night, the box opens up on its own and says Emily's name.
It was really well done.
Thank you. So the next morning, Clyde comes upstairs looking for Em and sees her staring in the mirror of the box. And like it's kind of a like jacked up old mirror. You know how like those old mirrors get to where they're like it almost looks like water stains from the back.
Yeah, was it like a mercury mirror?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And in that mirror, it looks like Em's eyes are rolled into the back of her head. It's really fucking creepy. But Clyde approaches, and then she turns around, revealing everything to be fine with her eyes. They were not rolled in the back of her head, at least when she turned around. So later that morning, Em stabs Dad, Clyde, at breakfast with a fork. It was very reminiscent to me. I thought of the "Lay off me, I'm starving" scene from Chris Farley and SNL.
If Chris Farley was possessed by a demon and had a fork.
Yeah, except this was with a fork and blood and demons and
Right,
such.
yeah.
Not quite as funny, but you know, R.I.P. Chris Farley. So that night, the house became infested with moths. Em is found in her room, sitting up with the box open as she is surrounded by moths.
Mauves. It almost like needs a V.
Moths.
But then it's like the color mauve.
Yeah. So the next morning, as Clyde and the girls are leaving, Em has absolutely no recollection of what had happened the night before. Which worries Clyde, as we can tell by his well-acted face.
Are you being sarcastic, or did he really act that out?
No, he acted it out. He was like, you see him in their like rear view mirror cam, you know? And it's like, he's like, oh God, there's obviously something wrong here. Yeah, he killed it.
Needed an Oscar for that, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. So anyway, Clyde takes the girls back to Stephanie's, tells her the story, and she's just like, so fucking what? Quipping that she didn't know that moths were attracted to pizza.
And that's why they're divorced, because she can't let anything go.
Right?
Because that was at least a week ago.
Right. So Clyde tries to tell Stephanie about Em's mood changes, but she just blames the divorce and says it will take time. That night, curious about the change in Em, Clyde decides to inspect the box himself, discovering all of the weird trinkets inside. Obviously not the ring because she's wearing the ring, but he found like the dead moth and the tooth and such. Meanwhile, Em is shown looking in the bathroom mirror back at her mom's house, and she pulls a pen light out of the cabinet and looks down her throat and sees two fingers come out of her throat. It was very fucking creepy. So the next day, she's at school, and a boy takes her bag that has the box in it, because apparently now she's taking a duffel bag with this big ass box in it to school.
Right.
And he's like looking at it. She starts like, hey, well, give it back. And he's not giving it back. And she literally starts beating the shit out of him.
She was wailing on him, yeah.
Until a teacher is able to stop her. Which I'm sure nowadays that teacher got fired for even touching that child. Just saying. There's a parent-teacher conference about the attack. Also, they talk about Em's mood change. She's not completing assignments, etc., etc. The teacher suggests that maybe she needs some time apart from the box, since it was her trigger.
Logical.
Right, so they keep the box at the school. So Stephanie continues to blame the divorce, but Clyde believes that something more sinister is afoot. So that night, after hearing noises coming from the box, the teacher, which is still at the school late at night for whatever reason.
She had papers to grade and lessons to plan.
Right, but why is she was sitting in the dark.
That's fair.
With like a lamp light on. Like, first
because
off, there's no lamp light.
Fundings to schools got cut.
Because she was touching children. Anyway, I digress. So the teacher tries to open the box, and then the teacher gets attacked by the spirit. She starts bleeding from her eyes, and then she goes flying out the window to her death.
Yeah.
So the next morning at breakfast, Em tells her dad about the invisible woman that lives in the box, and that the woman calls Em special. Yeah. So Clyde, now fully convinced that something is fucking creepy with the box, decides to throw it in a dumpster.
Logical.
I mean, I'm honestly surprised he didn't wrap it in old rusty chains and throw it at the bottom of the river.
Also would have been logical.
Would have been logical and much more on the nose. So Em questions her dad about the box that night, and he says, look, we're done with the box. And Em gets mad. She starts telling her dad how much she hates him. And she starts yelling at him. And this draws the attention of her sister, Hannah, who comes out, and she's behind her dad. And the spirit then slaps Em. And Em starts asking her dad why he's slapping the shit out of her. And Hannah can't see, so Hannah thinks Dad's slapping the shit out of her. And Dad's like, I would never slap the shit out of you. Why? And, you know. So anyway, Em flees the house. Dad chases after. Em tracks down the box in the dumpster.
In the dumpster, yeah.
Yeah. Had like a homing beacon that was built in or something. So she opens it, and a cloud of moths come out. She starts talking to the Dybbuk in a strange language. And then Em starts objecting to the Dybbuk about something, because at first she's like, yeah, yes. And then she's like, no. And then all the moths fly into her mouth, which I just took as like a physical depiction of the spirit entering Em's body.
Sure, yeah.
So then Clyde arrives after everything. Em has collapsed, so he picks up Em. He carries her back down the street to his house.
Because he walked, he didn't bring the car.
Right. Because that's what
so
you do.
So he had to carry her all the way back.
Chasing an 8-year-old. So he carries her back to the house where Hannah, Stephanie, and the police are now waiting. So Clyde's visitation rights get suspended, naturally. And then Clyde decides to take the box to a university professor who tells him that it's a Dybbuk box that dates back to the 1920s, and it's typically used to hold an evil spirit worse than the devil. So Dad decides, I want to research some Dybbuks, and I want to research some Jewish exorcisms. So Clyde enters Mom's house and goes to Em's room against permission. He's like not supposed to be seeing anybody. He starts reading from the Tanakh, it's a Hebrew Bible.
Okay.
He starts reading Psalm 91. The wind starts to ruffle the pages. And then eventually a dark, invisible spirit throws the Tanakh from his hand across the room.
I'm just surprised he decided to try to do this Jewish exorcism, which he is. Yeah, I'm assuming he's not Jewish, but he decided to try to do it himself after watching a bunch of videos.
Right.
Showing how well the exorcisms go.
I mean, hell, people do it every day. It's probably on YouTube.
If the priest can do it, if the rabbis can do it, then I can do it
I'll
too.
look it up later. There's probably a rabbi on YouTube showing how to give an exorcism.
Don't try this at home.
Or do, and let us know.
No, don't try it at home. I don't want to get sued.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Edit out the part where you said do it.
I'm leaving all of this in. So Clyde, now convinced of the evil spirit, drives to a Hasidic community in Brooklyn, which upon second watch I realized was 228 miles away. I guess there were no Jews anywhere close to him.
300 miles of him.
Right, so he had to drive all the way to New York. So once he's there, he meets a Jewish priest named Dybbuk, who tells him that the possession has 3 stages. The third of which being when the Dybbuk latches onto its human host, becoming one entity with it. So Dybbuk is played by Matisyahu.
Yeah, it is.
And he takes Clyde to a room with some rabbis and priests. And once they realize what they're dealing with, pretty much all of them leave.
Yeah, they're like, F this.
Except for Dybbuk, who vows to help. So that night, Stephanie witnesses the possession for the first time. She comes downstairs, and Em is in the kitchen in the middle of the night, and some creepy shit happens.
Yeah.
And so she's like, hey, I want to talk to Em, and the entity's like, Em isn't here right now. And it's just like, oh, okay then. Like, that's the part where I would have just left and called a priest or something.
And she had the refrigerator open, and she was just chowing down on some raw meat. And she's the one who was like a vegetarian.
This is true. Yeah. there's some back and forth. Like, they're on one side of the table and the other one's on the other side of the table, kind of doing that whole chase back and forth thing. But this is the part where they make really good use of camera work. And every time they shoot Emily, it's through like a glass jar or glass container of some sort, and it distorts her face, which is kind of cool because they didn't have to like make it cheap by using like bad special effects or, you know,
right.
And they didn't have to spend the money on good special effects, you know?
Yeah, what year did this come out? 2012? Yeah.
So they definitely had the technology, but they saved some money by just shooting it smart. So the next morning, as Brett is getting the car ready for everyone to go somewhere, they don't really say where they're going, but like the mom comes downstairs with a backpack and she's like, all right, is everybody ready? And like Brett's out like cleaning the windshield and stuff. I know he had talked about having a movie date earlier, but I don't know if that's what they were doing at this point. Were they
getting ready for school?
Maybe,
whatever.
Maybe.
They were going somewhere.
Yeah.
With a backpack.
So anyway, he's getting the car ready and Em approaches him looking very haggard.
Yes. That's a good way to put it.
And Brett's mouth starts to bleed profusely, and he reaches up, and then all of his teeth fall out.
Did you say he's a dentist who's like super obsessed with teeth? So I just thought it was kind of like that poetic or like cruel irony that like he's the dentist and takes pride in his teeth and other people's teeth, and he's the one who's losing his teeth. Well
put. Yeah. I forgot to mention that earlier. So Brett gets in his car and just like speeds off in reverse. Like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. He obviously couldn't say that because you need teeth to say some of those sounds. And Em collapses into a seizure. Mm-hmm. So Clyde and Zadok are headed to Stephanie's house when Zadok tells Clyde that the only way to defeat the Dybbuk is to lock it back inside the box via a forced ritual. Zadok is sure that the name must be in the box somewhere. He looks all over. When he can't find it, he smashes the mirror in the box, and it uncovers the name of the spirit, which is Abizu, which translates to the taker of children, which sounds happy. So back at the hospital, they're giving Em an MRI. During the MRI, Stephanie and Hannah can see the face of the Dybbuk inside of Em on the MRI image.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool scene.
It was pretty cool, yeah.
Because it almost looked like, oh, is that a smudge? And then it would kind of like come into focus and come out, and like if you weren't paying attention, yeah. Because like I don't think the doctors noticed it because they weren't really like.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Well, and they weren't doctors, but they were actors. So anyway, Clyde and Zadok eventually arrive to the hospital where Mom and Hannah are finally on board with the whole possession thing. Like, it took literally seeing it for them to be on board.
Right.
So Zadok says that they need more privacy than the hospital room where Em is if they're going to perform this exorcism. Mm-hmm. And also, I think there was something about like needing like a bathtub or a water or something. Okay. So Clyde conveniently knows that there is a physical therapy room downstairs that is usually unused on whatever certain day this is. Mm-hmm. So Clyde, Stephanie, Hannah, and Zadok take Em down to the physical therapy room and start the exorcism. Once downstairs, Zadok says that like others have done before them, they must put something from the heart in the box.
Not physically from their heart.
Right. So Zadok puts in his grandfather's pocket watch. Stephanie puts in a family picture. Hannah cuts a lock of her hair. Mm-hmm. Which we didn't really mention earlier. She wasn't very fond of fake hair, so I guess she's like really all about real hair. And it's where her heart is, so she put in a lock of hair. And Clyde puts in his wedding ring. So after they put on all of their things, Zadok starts the exorcism. He states that he has oil of 2 olive trees, and that oil represents light. And that water represents darkness, and only light can defeat darkness.
Okay. Also, I thought it was funny he just had like a flippin' Costco like gallon jug of olive oil.
Right, but it's from 2 olive trees.
I'm sure all olive oil is from at least 2 olive trees, just saying.
So Zadok starts chanting in Hebrew in a manner... Like, he starts, like, bobbing up and down with, like, a shawl around him. I thought that he was about to, like, have a rap battle with the evil spirit.
Yeah, the shawl was, like, over his head.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I was waiting for him to break out.
I was, like, waiting for somebody to call him, like, B-Rabbit or something.
I was expecting him to start singing, you know, like, King Without His Crown or something.
So, regardless, I just kept waiting for the beat to drop.
Oh, for sure.
During this exorcism. So a possessed M attacks Dybbuk. Clyde grabs M to save Dybbuk, and M flees the room. Clyde gives follow into the next room, which conveniently is the morgue.
Right.
That's exactly where I want to walk into, a bunch of dead bodies with an evil spirit. As Clyde approaches M, she attacks him. Clyde begs for the Dybbuk to take him instead. Clyde survives the attack. Then Stephanie, Hannah, and Dybbuk come in to find Clyde and M in an embrace. Stephanie and Hannah join in, believing everything to be fixed and better and back to happiness, happy. Dybbuk, being the voice of reason, says, "This isn't right."
Yeah.
He's like, "Where did the Dybbuk go?" And he starts to chant in Hebrew again, trying to get the Dybbuk to reveal itself, and it does. It has now transferred from M into Clyde. So Dybbuk begins to perform an exorcism on Clyde now, imploring Abizu to leave his body and return to the box. It's a success, as we see Abizu emerge from Clyde's mouth.
And now it's an actual, like, physical being that you can see.
Right, yeah, very, very creepy. And it crawls back to the box. And Abizu becomes trapped back into the box.
Which, like, why would it voluntarily get back into the box? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that'd be like a prisoner, like, voluntarily going back into jail.
The Hebrew words that he said were just that good.
I guess so. It's just some modest Yahoo magic shit going on.
That's right.
Which, can I just say, I think he was, like, my favorite.
Oh, I thought
like,
he was very
role
good
in the movie. Yeah, I was, like, surprised at how well he did. Yeah.
Him and the M girl, I thought, were, like, awesome in this movie. So the family is reunited by this tragedy. Stephanie and Clyde get back together. Obviously, Brett has taken off, so there's no,
Yeah, I wonder whatever happened to Brett and his non-teeth.
He went and got,
dentures.
Dentures or
whatever
something.
they're called. Cap.
Yeah. So as Dybbuk is driving, after everybody's happy and everything, he's going to take the box to a safe place. He's in Clyde's car, and Clyde's just like, all you've done for our
keep the
family,
car.
Fucking keep it.
We just need one car now. We're never leaving each other's side.
Yeah. And then he gets T-boned by an 18-wheeler, which kills Dybbuk. The box, of course, survives the accident, because why wouldn't it?
Right.
And we hear Abizu whispering from the box as the credits begin to roll.
Was there a sequel to this movie? I don't think there was.
I don't think so.
Okay. I felt like they left it open to a sequel, but no. There wasn't. Not that I know.
So, let's see. I got some interesting tidbits about the movie.
Lay them on me.
So, Bornadal stated that he was drawn to the possession script, having seen it as more of an allegory for a divorce than as a true horror film. The actors Sedgwick and Morgan were brought in to play the Brennecks. Morgan chose to participate after seeing Callis's audition tape, who was the girl who played M. And then parts of the movie were filmed at a former mental institution in British Columbia.
And I'm wondering if those were the scenes in the hospital then, like the exorcism scene and the...
Maybe so. Maybe the people in
Which
the
makes it
morgue
even
were...
creepier.
Right. So the owner of the Dybbuk Box at the time, Jason Haxton, offered to send it to producer Sam Raimi, who was both interested and reluctant. Raimi laughingly told Entertainment Weekly interviewer, "I didn't want anything to do with it. I'm scared of the thing." Jeffrey Dean Morgan felt similarly. He said, "In the research I did, I started getting creeped out. My girlfriend was like, let's just make sure that we don't actually go near the real Dybbuk Box." And one of the screenwriters was like, we were like, hell no. We don't want to see it. Don't send us a picture of it. So,
yeah, I heard that, Haxton offered to bring it by, but he ultimately couldn't because no one wanted to, like, take responsibility for it. Because, like, Raimi was like, yeah, bring it. But then ultimately no one was like, I don't want that in my possession. No pun intended, but...
So the director said that, even though it wasn't there, some really weird things happened. He said, "I've never stood under a neon light that wasn't lit before and have it explode. The worst thing was 5 days after we wrapped the movie, all the props burned. The storage house in Vancouver burned to the ground, and the fire department does not know the cause." He says, "I'm not a superstitious man, and I would like to say, yeah, it's just a coincidence." And then the last little fact that I had, and I'll wrap up here, is so at the end, when we hear the Abizu speaking from the box after the car crash, so throughout the whole movie, Abizu is speaking Polish.
Oh,
apparently.
okay.
And at the end of the movie, when the box has survived the car crash sitting on the side of the road, the Dybbuk says, "So many mushrooms sitting in the grass," which apparently comes from a Polish nursery rhyme, which I tried to track down, but because I don't know how to speak Polish or write in Polish, it was kind of hard to track down using just an English translation. Sure. Because I'm sure it could be translated in multiple ways. If I was able to search with the original like Polish term, it may have been easier. But I was unfortunately unable to find anything.
That's interesting. And I think, so many mushrooms sitting in the grass, that makes me think of like children,
right?
Like the mushrooms would be children. Like so many just available for the picking. It makes it all more creepy. But also cool.
So, anyway, that's all I've got.
Awesome.
Why don't you share with us about the actual story? I've been dying to listen.
Ooh.
Bad choice of words.
So, as we said, the true story really revolves around the Dybbuk Box. So what is the Dybbuk Box? Well, the Dybbuk Box is a wine cabinet which houses a Dybbuk. A Dybbuk is an evil or malevolent spirit which can haunt and possibly possess the living. It comes from Jewish culture, and the term Dybbuk Box, when it first came into culture, referred to this specific case. But now, Dybbuk boxes are, more mainstream. So if you search Dybbuk Box, I think this case will be the one that comes up. But I'm going to educate everyone on what this story entails.
Okay, cool. Hit me with it.
All right. So it all kind of begins with this infamous auction on eBay.
Right.
So the original owner, Kevin Manis, posted this on eBay trying to sell the Dybbuk Box. So I'm just going to read the original posting and...
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Go from there and then tell you what happened after. So this is verbatim from the original post. All of the events that I am about to set forth in this listing are accurate and may be verified by the winning bidder with the copies of hospital records and sworn affidavits that I am including as part of the sale of the cabinet. The winning bidder will also be able to contact most of the persons mentioned herein for the purposes of verification, corroboration, and to gain insight into the full scope of whatever it is. During September of 2001, I attended a real estate sale in Portland, Oregon. The items liquidated at this sale were from the estate of a woman who had passed away at the age of 103.
Wow.
A granddaughter of the woman told me that her grandmother had been born in Poland, which is interesting that you said that. Okay. Abizu is speaking Polish. Where she grew up, married, raised a family, and lived until she was sent to a Nazi concentration camp during World War II. She was the only member of her family who survived the camp. Her parents, brothers, a sister, husband, and 2 sons and a daughter were all killed. She survived the camp by escaping with some other prisoners and somehow making her way to Spain, where she lived until the end of the war.
My goodness.
I was told that she acquired the small wine cabinet listed here in Spain, and it was one of only 3 items that she brought with her when she immigrated to the United States. The other 2 items were a steamer trunk and a sewing box. I purchased the wine cabinet along with the sewing box and some other furniture at the estate sale. After the sale, I was approached by the woman's granddaughter who said, "I see you got the Dybbuk box." She was referring to the wine cabinet. I asked her what a Dybbuk box was, and she told me that when she was growing up, her grandmother always kept the wine cabinet in her sewing room. It was always shut and set in place that was out of reach. The grandmother always called it the Dybbuk box. When the girl asked her grandmother what was inside, her grandmother spit 3 times through her fingers, said a Dybbuk and Kieselum? I don't know if I'm mispronouncing that. Kieselum? The grandmother went on to tell the girl that the wine cabinet was never, ever to be opened.
Ever.
Never. The granddaughter told me that her grandmother had asked that the box be buried with her. However, as such a request was contrary to the rules of an Orthodox Jewish burial, the grandmother's request had not been honored. I asked the granddaughter what a Dybbuk and Kieselum were, but she did not know. I asked if she would like to open it with me. She did not want to open it, as her grandmother had been very empathetic and serious when she had instructed her not to do so. And, regardless of the reason, she wanted to honor her grandmother's request. I finally ended up offering to let her keep what seemed to be a sentimental keepsake. At that point, she was very insistent and said, "No, you bought it." I explained that I didn't want my money back and that it would make me feel better to do what I thought was an act of kindness. She then became somewhat upset. Looking back now, the way she became upset was just plain odd. She raised her voice to me and said, "You bought it. You made a deal." Which, I don't know.
Like, why did you even approach him if you didn't want to, like, deal with it, you know?
Well, and it's just like, why are you offering to let her keep it when she, like, clearly is like, oh, don't open it. Like, I don't know.
Right?
When I tried to speak, she yelled, "We don't want it." She began to cry and asked me to leave, and then quickly walked away. I wrote the whole episode off to the stress and grief that she must have been experiencing. I took my purchases and politely left. At the time when I bought the cabinet, I owned a small furniture refinishing business. I took the cabinet to my store and put it in my basement workshop where I intended to refinish it and give it as a gift to my mother. I didn't think anything more about it. I opened my shop for the day and went to run some errands, leaving the young woman who did sales for me in charge. After about a half hour, I got a call on my cell phone. The call was from my salesperson. She was absolutely hysterical and screaming that someone in my workshop was breaking glass and swearing. Furthermore, the intruder had locked the iron security gates and the emergency exit, and she couldn't get out. As I told her to call the police, my cell phone battery went dead.
Oh, no.
I hit speeds of 100 miles per hour getting back to the shop. When I arrived, I found the gates locked. I went inside and found my employee on the floor in the corner of my office, sobbing hysterically. I ran to the basement and went downstairs. At the bottom of the stairs, I was hit by an overpowering, unmistakable odor of cat urine. And then in parentheses, he said there had never been any animals kept or found in my shop. The lights didn't work. As I investigated, I found that the reason the lights didn't work also explained the sounds of glass breaking. All of the light bulbs in the basement were broken. All 9 incandescent bulbs had been broken in their sockets, and 10 4-foot fluorescent tubes were lying shattered on the floor. I did not find an intruder, however. I should also add that there was only one entrance to the basement. It would have been impossible for anyone to leave without meeting me head on. I went back up to speak with my salesperson, but she had left. She never returned to work.
Wisely so.
Right? She never returned to work after having been with me for 2 years. She refuses to discuss the incident to this day. I never thought of relating the events of that day to anything having to do with the cabinet. Then things got worse. As I already indicated, I had decided to give the cabinet to my mother as a birthday gift. About 2 weeks after I made the purchase, I decided to get started refinishing it. I was surprised to find that the cabinet has a unique little mechanism. When you open one of the doors, the mechanism causes the opposite door and the little drawer below to open at the same time. It was very well made. Inside the cabinet, I found the following items: 1 1928 U.S. wheat penny, 1 1925 U.S. wheat penny, 1 small lock of blonde hair bound with string, 1 small lock of black-brown hair bound with string, 1 small granite statue in... Mabel's having a nightmare.
Mabel, wake up.
You okay?
There's no Dybbuk boxes.
Yeah.
You're okay.
1 small granite statue engraved and gilded with Hebrew letters. In parentheses, I have been told that the letters spell out the word shalom. 1 dried rosebud. 1 golden wine cup. 1 very strange black cast iron candlestick holder with octopus legs. It's not like actually octopus legs. They're like curly, like fancy, like curly Q legs. Yeah. I saved all of the items in a box, intending to return them to the estate. The family has refused the items, so they will be included in the sale of this cabinet. After opening the cabinet, I decided not to refinish it. I cleaned it and rubbed in some lemon oil. It was at this time that I noticed that there was an inscription in Hebrew carved into the back of the cabinet. I have no idea what it says or if it is significant. I have included a picture of that inscription below. On my mother's birthday, October 28th, 2001, my mother called to tell me that she was going out of town with my sister for 3 days, and we postponed celebrating her birthday together until she returned. On October 31st, 2001, my mother came to my shop. We were going to have lunch together, but before we were going to leave, I gave her the wine cabinet. She seemed to like it. While she examined it, I went to make a phone call. I hadn't been out of sight in more than 5 minutes when one of my employees came running into my office saying that something was wrong with my mom. When I went back to see what the matter was, I found my mom sitting in a chair beside the cabinet. Her face had no expression, but tears were streaming down her cheeks. No matter how I tried to get her to respond, she would not. She could not. It turns out that my mother had suffered a stroke. She was taken to the hospital by ambulance. She ended up suffering partial paralysis, losing her ability to speak and form words. In parentheses, she has since regained the ability to speak. She could understand things being said to her and could respond by pointing to letters of the alphabet to spell out words she wanted to say. When I asked her the following day how she was doing, she teared up and spelled out the words N-O-G-I-F-T, no gift. I assured her that I had given her a gift for her birthday, thinking that she didn't remember, but she became even more upset and spelled out the words HATEGIFT, hate gift.
The message is clear then.
Right. I laughed and told her not to worry. I told her I was sorry she didn't like the cabinet and that I would get her anything she wanted if she would promise to get well soon. Still, I didn't associate anything that had happened with the cabinet itself or anything paranormal. Frankly, I don't think I ever even used the term paranormal until this last month. I'll try to make this short now. It doesn't get shorter. I gave the cabinet to my sister. She kept it for a week, then gave it back. She complained that she couldn't get the doors to stay closed and that they kept coming open. There are no springs in the door mechanism, and I have never found that the doors come open. I gave it to my brother and his wife, who kept it for 3 days and then gave it back. My brother said it smelt of jasmine flowers, while his wife insisted that it put out an odor of cat urine. I gave it to my girlfriend, who asked me to sell it for her after only 2 days.
This seems like the king of regifting.
Right?
Just fucking keep the thing for yourself at this point.
No. I sold it the same day to a nice middle-aged couple. 3 days later, when I came to open the shop for the day, I found the cabinet sitting at the front doors with a note that read, "This has a bad darkness."
We don't want the money. We don't even want
right?
to just fucking take it back.
I had no idea what that meant. Anyway, I ended up taking it home. Then things got even worse. Since the day I brought it home, I began having a strange recurring nightmare. Every time I have the horrible dream, it goes something like this. I find myself walking with a friend, usually someone I know well and trust, at some point in the dream. I find myself looking into the eyes of the person that I am with. It is then that I realize that there is something different, something evil looking back at me. At that point in my dream, the person I am with changes into what can only be described as the most gruesome, demonic-looking hag that I have ever seen. This hag proceeds then to beat the living tar out of me. I have awakened numerous times to find bruises and marks on myself where I have been hit by the old woman during the previous night. Still, I never related the nightmares to the cabinet, nor do I think I ever would have. About a month ago, however, my sister and my brother and his wife came over to my house and spent the night. The following morning, during breakfast, my sister complained that she had a horrible nightmare. She said that she recalled having had it a couple times before and went on to describe my nightmare exactly to the last detail. My brother and his wife froze as they listened, and then chimed in that they both had the exact same dream during the night as well. My hair was standing up on the back of my neck and still is. As we talked, it became clear that the common denominator was that each of us had the nightmare during the times that the cabinet was in our respective homes. I called my girlfriend and asked if she could recall having any nightmares recently. She described the same nightmare, same hag, everything. When I asked her if she remembered the date when she had the nightmare, she said that she did not. Then I asked if it happened to be the night before she gave me the cabinet back to sell for her. She said, "Yeah, hey, how did you know that?" I'm sure she said that exactly. Now then, since my family discussion, it seems like all hell is breaking loose. For a week afterward, I started seeing what I can only describe as shadow things in my peripheral vision. In fact, numerous visitors to my home have claimed that they have seen these shadow things. I put the cabinet in an outside storage unit and was awakened when the smoke alarm in the unit went off in the middle of the night. When I went to see what was burning, I opened the door and didn't see any smoke. However, I did get hit with the smell of cat urine. When I went back inside, the smell was there in my house. Then he says, in all capital letters, "I do not own a cat and I never have." I went back outside and grabbed the cabinet. I brought it back inside and tried to research it on the internet. While I was surfing the net, this was from like 2002, by the way, or 2003 or something. While I was surfing the net, I fell asleep and once again had the same freaking nightmare. Again, I'm just quoting. I woke up at around 4:30 a.m. In parentheses, he said, when it felt and smelled like someone was breathing on my neck. Which I find interesting that he said, it smelled like someone was breathing on my neck.
Right? How does it smell like, I mean...
Bad breath. I don't know.
Whatever.
He woke up at around 4:30 a.m. to find that my house now smelled like jasmine flowers, and just in time to see a huge shadow thing go loping down the hall away from me.
Creepy.
Mm-hmm. I would destroy this thing in a second, except I really don't have any understanding of what I may or may not be dealing with. I am afraid, and then in parentheses he says, and I do mean afraid, that if I destroy the cabinet, whatever it is that seems to have come with the cabinet may just stay here with me. I have been told that there are people who shop on eBay that understand these kinds of things and specifically look for these kinds of items. If you are one of these people, please buy this cabinet and do whatever you do with a thing like this. Help me. You can see that I have no reserve price or minimum bid. If I can make things any easier, let me know and I will do everything within my abilities. One more note, on the same day my mom had her stroke, the lease to my store was summarily terminated without cause. The measurements are 12.5 inches by 7.5 inches by 16 inches and 1/4. And then in all capital letters, all of the items that I originally found inside the cabinet are included in the sale and will be delivered with the cabinet. And that is the end of that auction.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And that's just the start of the story.
It really is. So a couple of things I thought were interesting after hearing your summary of the movie. There is more, but we'll just take this one piece at a time.
Okay.
So when you said in the beginning, you saw that there was like the birthday card with it to his mom.
Yeah.
That made me think of like how he gave the box to his mom and she suffered a stroke. And then in the movie, the mother was in a hospital bed and like couldn't speak.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting. And then when you talked about Hannah cutting her hair and putting that in the box, I thought that was kind of an interesting like circle back to the original items that were actually found in the box.
Gotcha.
So I guess that's it.
Okay.
So you can go back online and see the original post. But I don't know the date of the original post because when I actually found it, it was copied and pasted into a new auction. I'll get into that in a minute. But so there is no original posting date, but you can see that there were modifications made to the post. I won't read them, but modifications on June 12th and June 14th of 2003. So I'm guessing around that time. And on the 14th, Manus, who is the man who originally posted this, he said he came home on Friday, June 13th, and all 10 of the fish in his aquarium were dead.
On Friday the 13th.
On Friday the 13th. And I did look, and in June of 2003, there was a Friday the 13th. So
cool.
Lines up. So the box was ultimately purchased from the auction for $140 by, I hope I don't mispronounce this, Iosif. It's Iosif. So I don't know if it's Yosef.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Nitschke, a student in Missouri who quickly turned around and posted the box for sale on eBay himself. That post was entitled Dybbuk Haunted Jewish Wine Cabinet Box. So in addition to that previous posting I read, he added the following. I bought the box from the first seller above in the eBay auction around June of 2003 out of curiosity about the quote haunted box. After receiving a deluge of email about the box, I set up a website to answer some questions, which I have stopped updating in September and haven't updated to this day because I didn't want to talk about it with anyone. For the sake of information, I found that a Dybbuk in Jewish folklore / mythology / teaching / whatever is a misplaced spirit that can either rise to heaven nor descend into hell, essentially stuck in limbo or purgatory. Here's another definition I found. 1, in parentheses, Jewish folklore. A demon that enters the body of a living person and controls that body's behavior. Synonyms. Dybbuk. So there's like 2 ways of spelling it. Either Dibbuk or Dybbuk.
Right.
So that's what the synonym is. 2, evil spirits that cause mental illness, rage, and changes of personality. The spirit or soul of a dead person that inhabits the body of a living one, with sometimes evil, sometimes positive results. If you believe in paranormal phenomena, the box contains or is possessed by at least 1 Dybbuk, possibly 2, as the grandmother stated. A Dybbuk and a Keselam. A Keselam is a term similar to a Turkish word that means priest. This would probably correspond with the pair of wrapped strands of blonde and brown-black hair. The Hebrew carving on the back, to my knowledge, is a relatively common Jewish prayer. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. The Lord is one. Blessed is the name of his honored kingdom forever. This is said frequently at times of fear, death, etc. So,
okay.
Already off to a great start.
Right.
I was doubtful of the quote haunted box, and I still don't believe in the paranormal. What happened in August and September is likely coincidental, so I will relate it as I originally wrote it down in a log. Sunday, August 31st, 2003. Over the last week, some interesting, though possibly coincidental items of note have come up. Firstly, I share the house with 6 other people. We have been taking turns sleeping with the box in each of our rooms. 2 people are now complaining of burning eyes. 1 is listless and depleted of energy. And another became spontaneously sick. And then he has in parentheses, in retrospect, I would say it was allergies. A few days after these ongoing annoyances started, the air outside our house was filled with small bugs for several hours. And then in parentheses, weird summer stuff? Question mark. Which made me think of in the movie they have all, yeah. And then he says, last night, Saturday, we discovered that the box, now located in the back corner of the house, had come mostly open, though it had been shut and seems unlikely that anyone could or would have touched it. And then new entry dated Wednesday, September 10th, 2003. Though it seems impossible to prove that the box is a direct cause of misfortune, we have definitely seen a tidal wave of, quote, bad luck. Strange odors now permeate the house. The dumpster out back overflows with trash and decay. One roommate suddenly got bronchitis, and I broke a finger. Several mice have died in the engine of one car, and more electronic devices seem to be dying every day. Xbox, toaster, TV, and watches.
Interesting.
I don't really want to talk about anything between September and January, so I'll just say that I'm selling the box now for a couple of reasons. 1, around October 6th, I started feeling bad with trouble sleeping. This problem has persisted through today. 2, I live alone now, and as of late I have noticed replacing a lot of burnt out light bulbs and getting many unusual car repairs. In parentheses, transmission fluid was burned out of the reservoir. 3, I've started seeing things sort of like large, vertical, dark blurs in my peripheral vision. 4, I smell something like juniper bushes or stingy ammonia in my garage often, and I have no idea what from. 5, most disturbingly, last Tuesday, January 27th, 2004, my hair began to fall out. Today, Friday, it's about half gone. I'm in my early 20s, and I just got a clean blood test back from the doctors. Maybe it's stress related, I don't know.
So that reminds me of the opening scene with the old lady. I didn't touch on it in my synopsis, but her hair was falling out.
Oh.
In the beginning of the movie.
Oh, yeah, that's right. She ran her hands through her hair in the mirror, and it like a huge clump of hair came out.
And then that's when she was like, fuck it, I'm grabbing a hammer.
That's a good point. Anyhow, for personal reasons, I very strongly do not want this box anymore. I hope there's someone on eBay that will take this thing off my hands. In parentheses, I would just throw it away in the woods or something, but I know there has been some interest in it in the past. End of post. So that auction ended on February 9th, 2004, and the box was sold for $280, so twice as much as the first auction, to Jason Haxton, who you mentioned. He was a museum curator and paranormal lecturer in Missouri who had heard about the box from a research student who had lived with Nietzsche.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So obviously, Haxton was interested in this box for its paranormal value, I guess. And so he had started doing some research into it. So the following quote that I'm going to read is from an article in 2012. It says, in June 2004, Haxton visited Portland for work, and after finding Mannis's unlisted number in the county tax rolls, and again, Kevin Mannis is the original poster of the box on eBay. So after finding his address, he arranged a meeting with him. Mannis, who had done his best to forget about the box, was astounded to learn that his original eBay listing had now received 140,000 hits. The pair embarked on a Dybbuk Box tour of the city, including the store whose basement lights had been smashed, so the store that Mannis used to run. Mannis tried, but failed to locate the house where he had bought the artifact. Not long after Haxton's return to Missouri, Mannis contacted him to say that he had found the house and visited with an elderly woman named Sophie, Havela's cousin, who Havela was the original grandmother.
Okay.
Sophie recalled her own childhood in 1930s Poland and how Havela had attempted to capture a spirit to help the Jews fight the Nazis, but instead had allowed a malevolent entity to enter the world. According to Sophie, Havela had been unable to contain the spirit, and Sophie claimed that many of the disasters of the second half of the 20th century were the work of this entity.
Interesting.
Sophie also told Mannis that Havela had ultimately succeeded in imprisoning the spirit in the box. So she is the one who had captured the Dybbuk spirit.
Okay. Because the original story was that she bought it in Spain after escaping from the concentration camp.
Right. Yeah.
And now we're saying that she used it, basically that she had it before she went to the concentration
That's a good point. It kind of started the war.
Yeah. It's just
conflicting
time.
I guess it could have been... So it said that she had attempted to capture the spirit to help the Jews fight the Nazis. So I guess it could have been like towards the end of the war. She was trying to conjure up a spirit to help end the war type of a thing.
Okay.
I don't know. You're right. And I just thought it was really convenient that Manus had trouble finding the house where he bought it until after Haxton had returned to Missouri, and he was like, oh, hey, guess what? I found the house, and this is what she said. Also, did I mention that Manus was a creative writer by profession?
But also, in their defense, like, in the story, it said that she bought the wine box in Spain. Mm-hmm. The demon may have been following her around, and she didn't trap it until she bought the
That's
wine
a good
box.
point.
I mean, I don't know, but I'm just...
Yeah, that's a fair point.
So.
Yeah, I don't really know how the timeline shook out. So as part of his research, Jason Haxton also had some help from Rebecca Edery, an Orthodox Jewish bookkeeper. So she says, so there are these like hoops on the inside of the doors. She said those hoops would be used to hold scrolls, and the size indicates that they would be used when going to comfort the family of the deceased.
Okay.
So she also says that the box needs a formal Jewish burial involving a 10-man minyan or prayer group. And that sounds not like the the one rabbi exorcism that Matisyahu performed in the movie.
Well, I mean, we're talking about the destruction of the box, right?
I guess, yeah. Because she says the box needs to be formally buried.
Right.
So yeah, it would be.
So maybe that's what he was heading to do at the end.
Right. Before he got hit.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So with that, kind of where the box is now, Haxton has since, quote, donated the Dybbuk Box to Zach Baggins of Ghost Adventures back in 2017, I guess, so a few years ago. And it is on display in his Las Vegas museum, supposedly. So, okay, so this next part is just kind of like, I'm just going to put this out there. This is kind of what I saw in my own research. But there is a Dybbuk Box website.
Okay.
I think it is run by Jason Haxton because there are a lot of like advertisements for his book that he wrote called The Dybbuk Box. It was published in 2011. But if you go to the website dybbuqbox.com, spelled DIBBUKBOX.com.
Okay.
Not a ton of information, but there are a lot of pictures, and there were pictures of a copy of the Dybbuk Box being made.
Interesting.
Yeah, like he literally showed them like side by side, and he was literally like, here's a picture of the Amish guy who's helping me recreate the Dybbuk Box. And I'm like, why are you making a copy of the Dybbuk Box?
So maybe good old boy Zach Baggins doesn't have the real thing in
That's
his
what
museum.
I'm wondering, because then there was a 2012 article with Entertainment Weekly, Haxton said, quote, I don't know what to do with it, but I don't dare let it out of my control either, he says. Sometimes I feel like Gollum, you know, in quotes, my precious. And he also says in that article that he wants to be buried with the box, quote, to be done with it, which reminded me in the original story how like the grandmother originally wanted the box to be buried with her.
Right.
But
she was Jewish and it wasn't a
like
typical and Jewish burial. Yeah.
So like all that being said, it just doesn't sound like the comments of someone who wants to like separate from the box.
This is true.
So, but I also read in a couple of places. So one source has said that Haxton donated the box to Baggins. Other sources say that Baggins paid tens of thousands of dollars for it. So I guess maybe if the price was right,
I guess
he would hand it over. But I'm just saying, like, I don't know why he made a copy, but it looked like there was a copy made, and I don't know.
I mean, hell, just think if the price was right and you still gave him a fake.
That's right. And you wouldn't have to part with it. All right, so that's all I've got. So apparently the Dybbuk Box is in Zach Baggins' Las Vegas Museum.
Right.
That's where it is. Or not.
Right. Well, cool.
So what do you think?
I don't think the movie was anything like the true story. It's kind of funny that they were adamant about this is what happened to a family over 29 days.
Yeah.
When it seems like most owners of it had it for longer than a 1 month
At
period.
least a couple of months, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there were things that you could make line up.
We're kind of interesting parallels.
Like the hair, like falling out, the hair in the box, the
box is a birthday gift, and
box is a birthday gift, the fact that it's a box.
yeah, not even the things found in the box were necessarily the same. Because, like, in the real story, there wasn't a tooth found. There wasn't a ring.
Right. Yeah, and there's like there's nothing about scents even mentioned in the movie, which it seemed like the scent seemed to play a big
Yeah.
part of the Dybbuk box as far as the stories on eBay. You know, whether it was cat urine or lavender, jasmine, whatever the case, it seemed like a scent was a big thing, and it wasn't even touched upon in the movie.
Right. Another thing in the true story, I don't think anyone was actually possessed by the box, which is interesting because the movie is called The Possession.
Right.
Like, they talk about things happening in their houses and, like, seeing, like, shadow figures, but nobody was actually possessed
by it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, we do also have the guy that owned it second, who was unwilling to talk between September and January. I guess anything could be believed to happen.
I guess that's true.
Sense, but I mean, there's definitely no story of possession. You're right. So, yeah, in this case, I would have to call the movie full of shit, not full of fact.
I would agree.
I still like the movie.
Yeah,
I enjoy it.
There were a couple of times where it was slow and I kind of lost interest and it kind of felt like it was dragging. I mean, we talked about Catch Me If You Can last week where it was over 2 hours and it went like you were entertained for the whole thing. It went by really quickly. This being only an hour and a half, and there were times when I was like, "Oh my god, is this over yet?" But I would say on our spectrum of movies we've done so far, I mean, even comparing it to another Paranormal, it's probably got more fact to it than the quiet ones.
Right.
But
or Winchester.
Yeah.
So
I would agree with that. But I think the Dybbuk Box story is really interesting.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it is as well. Like we normally do, we don't look into the others, but now that, you know, we've recorded this, I'm definitely going to go look into the true story of it and look at pictures and things of stuff like that.
Yeah, and just the fact that it's so well documented online because its history kind of started as the internet and eBay were like in the mainstream. So it's just kind of cool to have, like, you can go and look at the actual posts and the actual pictures. And
that's cool. Yeah, I will do that now.
Yeah. I'll look and see if we can post the pictures on Instagram maybe, and so everyone can see the actual pictures of the Dybbuk Box and what was found inside.
Sounds good. Yeah. Absolutely.
Cool.
Well, that wraps up another week of us.
Yeah.
Next week we have, what do we have, Katie?
Next week, heavy story. We're going to dive into the story of Sylvia Likens, and we're going to kind of look at two movies, one being The Girl Next Door and the other being An American Crime.
Yep. So
both about the same topic.
We'll definitely focus on one of the movies, seems to be more of an accurate portrayal, and then we'll touch on the other one, and then we'll get to hear the sad story of Sylvia Likens. We look forward to giving that to you next week. We've got a few great movies lined up, great stories that we're going to share with you over the next month or so. And
the week after that will be the much anticipated Helter Skelter episode.
Yes, yes.
We have been working on it.
We have been working on it. Like you said, we didn't know that the movie was made for TV, 3 hour
over
movie.
3 hours long.
So, and it does cover a good time span, so we needed a little bit more research time, especially with all the facts there. So, anyway, that does it for us this week. Like always, you can catch us on Podbean, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere you find podcasts. And like I always say, if you can't find us on one, let us know and we'll make it.
We'll make it happen.
That's right. Hit us up on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, all at Drink to Fact. Or you can email us at drinktofact@gmail.com. We would love to hear from any of you guys, ladies.
Yeah. If there's anything in the stories that you want to add to, let us know. If you want to see any stories, let us know what you want to see.
Yep. We are here to listen, and we do check the emails. So, as always,
please rate, review, and subscribe.
For sure. And we'll see you next week.
Cheers. Thanks for listening, guys.